right, good morning, everyone. Today, since I'm not going to be in the classroom, I wanted to go over the guided reading notes for lesson two, The War Continues. Now, I know I told you that you didn't have to do part two, and you didn't have to do a part two down here at the bottom because as I read it, it said early campaigns, and that reminded me of the previous lesson. But while this here is a typo, the questions below actually do go with the section. So in my haste, because I saw that the title of the section was not what I was expecting, I assumed that the questions that followed were the same. But no, they are some questions that go along with lesson two, and so I will be giving you the answers to those as well. Okay. So this first part here, we had to identify. The chart below lists the people, their countries, where they came from, and their roles in the American Revolution. Fill in the blank with the missing information. So what I want you to do is I want you to check your notes and make sure that you have the same information. Okay. So Benjamin Franklin comes from the U.S. of A. Served as the United States' first ambassador to France and helped to secure French support for the war. Next is Marquis de Lafayette. Comes from France. He was a volunteer soldier who became the trusted partner to General Washington, trusted aide. Next was Juan de Morales. He is from Spain, and he persuaded Spain and Cuba and Mexico to send money to aid the patriot cause. Next up is Kazimierz Pulaski from Poland. He won the promotion to rank of general and ultimately died fighting for the Continental military. Next is Baron von Steuben from Prussia. He helped train the Patriot troops at Valley Forge to become an effective fighting force. And lastly was Thaddeus Kuszko from Poland, and he helped to build important defenses. So these are some of the key people who came over and helped the colonists during the Revolution. Moving on to the second part, which you can feel free to fill out as we go over them. The American Revolution had effects on people besides the soldiers on the front lines. We wanted you to answer the questions to learn more about how the people on the home front, such as the women, the African Americans, and the Loyalists, fared during the war. So, number one, identify two ways the American Revolution affected women. Well, one is they took care of the families on their own when their men went off to war, and the women were responsible for the businesses and the farms that were left behind. Number two, how were the children affected by the American Revolution? Well, of course, the children lost their fathers who went off to war, and they had to grow up without a father there to teach them. Number three, number three, explaining how the American Revolution affected some American views of the enslavement of African Americans. Well, ultimately, the colonial quest for freedom and slavery, for freedom and liberty for themselves, led some Americans to realize the wrongness of slavery and to question the long-term impact of slavery in the colonies. Number four, some of the loyalists were subject to harsh treatment by their neighbors and the authorities. List four the consequences that the loyalists may have suffered for their beliefs. Well, for one, they were shunned by their neighbors. Some became victims of violence. Some were arrested, and some even were executed or killed by hanging. And number five, why were the loyalists treated so harshly by the supporters of the Patriot cause? Well, it's because the loyalists were seen as traitors and a danger to the fight for independence from Great Britain. So if you didn't get those answers in your notes, there were a few of you who did not follow my instructions, which was good for the first time. So good job. And they answered the questions. But I want you to check your notes, make sure that you have the accurate notes according to this key, and you use that as a study tool moving forward. All right, guys, we will see you soon.